Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here once again with my good friend Dan Wiseman. As you may be aware, no intro, no outro, stripped it down. It's not because you guys in the comments say you don't like the song, it's because my laptop's in the shop, ready to be repaired. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm actually pretty good, mate. I thought I'd save this for whilst we were recording, just to give myself a bit of clout. Just got my degree result today, and your boy got a first. So
Hey, first class in journalism. Well done, man.
nice one. Yeah, so that's sort of
Hey,
made up
that's amazing.
for the mess that was yesterday. But no, I mean we should probably talk about the game before we talk about that. Yeah, no, as I said, it's sort of made up. Yes, last night wasn't the best 90 minutes of our lives, was it, mate?
No, it was a pretty grim watch after sort of 30 minutes, really, wasn't it? It was uh, again frustrating because we find ourselves on the podcast, Dan, talking about Villa and putting in a good performance, and then the head's just completely going after they concede a goal, and it's totally understandable in this case, to be honest, Dan, because I cannot imagine what would have been going through in my head if I was Ezri Konsa watching that penalty being given, Dan. That's pretty much just what the podcast is going to be about, really. I think this the referees, the poor use of VAR, and how we can be stupidly done like that and deceived, and it's not smart, like Roy Keane or Gary Neville say. It's just disgraceful, really.
Yeah, it was. It's a shame, really, that because I do feel like up to them we were doing all right. It's a shame for Ezri. Like when I first watched it, it looked a bit clumsy, and John Moss had absolutely no doubt. Like he blew and whistled for the penalty pretty much straight away. And so before I saw the replay, I obviously it did look a little bit clumsy from Ezri, and obviously then John Moss blew straight away, and I was like, okay, well that must be pretty stonewall. But then obviously, as we see it, it's kind of Bruno. I don't think it's actually as intentional as Gary Neville was making out. Gary was saying, it was smart, as you said, and as if Bruno sort of knew what he was doing. I think he's sort of trying to turn on the ball, sort of a roulette type of thing, and his momentum sort of carried him into Ezri, who I don't actually think he knows is that close, and he sort of stands on Ezri, which brings Ezri down underneath him. Bruno falls on top, and so it's a bit of a mess. But when you look at him, it's Bruno that initiates the contact. You can perhaps make the, if I'm trying to defend the referees, trying to say that maybe Ezri comes out a bit hastily, but as you said, mate, it's really disappointing that the VAR didn't overturn that. John Moss is, he's had problems with it since the restart. He gave again involving it was either Pogba or Bruno. I think it was Bruno at Spurs away, where Dyer fouled him in the box, blew for a penalty, and VAR overturned it. And so it's not the first time that he's got a decision like this wrong. I just want to make the comment that he's not physically fit to referee. Yesterday, that man is not in any kind of shape. And so whilst he was up with play, it's just disappointing that the standard of referees and stuff like that. And I saw that he's in the VAR studio for our game against Crystal Palace.
You can't believe it, can you, mate? It's an absolute disgrace. The thing is, you've got to hold these people accountable, and it's not happened at all. Not just with Villa, because obviously we're going to look at it from our perspective, but I'm pretty sure Wolves have been pretty hit. Oh, I can't even speak. Jesus, been hit pretty poorly with the whole VAR. I think they would have been something like 8 points better off, I think, from decisions that happened at the start of the season. So it's a huge error. People have to be held accountable, and you're absolutely right. Looking at John Moss trying to run around the pitch like that, it's just embarrassing. And you've got to get yourself in these. You've got to be fit. You've got to get yourself in these kind of positions. But I think as well, what we've got to be wary of is not, and it's only a minority of fans, but not just blaming VAR for the reason why we're inevitably going down. Because I think it worked out. We'd be 6 points better off, maybe. If we had certain decisions go our way, even if the penalty didn't happen, I don't think Villa win this game. It's just the manner of the defeat, isn't it? Yeah. But it's just frustrating, isn't it? I don't really. I think everything has been said by people. all kinds of people. You had Peter Schmeichel on Twitter saying how furious he was about it. And I mean, obviously he's played for both clubs, but you'd expect his allegiances to be more with Manchester United and expect it to be more of a Roy Keane sort of a comment that he made on Sky Sports. But these people need to be held accountable. And but yeah, we do need to realise that it's playing well for 70 minutes against Spurs on the first day of the season, and then doing the same against Spurs at home, and then inevitably losing those games. It's performances like that which will cost us relegation, and then again performances in retrospect to what we've put in against Manchester United after that penalty decision, because they ran riot and Villa didn't come close after that, really, did they, Dan?
No, mate, it was really quite. I mean, I knew as soon as they scored, it was game over. Like we were never going to come back into that game. That's Man United's 13th penalty of the season. That's the most that any team has racked up in one season in the Premier League's history. And so it's interesting in that regard. But look, it's not penalties or referees or VAR that's going to be the reason we get relegated. We've conceded 65 goals this season in the league, which is just absolutely shambolic. The defending on Mason Greenwood's second goal is unforgivable. Tyrone Mings is a catalogue of errors, as I tweeted yesterday. First of all, not only allowing Martial to wriggle free like that in the centre of the pitch, but then as you know, I saw you saying you have to then foul or at least do something to try and stop him. We then give Mason Greenwood, a sort of 30-yard space to run into it. He lays it off to, I think it's Bruno, before he feeds him back. And Mason Greenwood, if we learn anything against, and I imagine that the boys must have watched it. If we learn anything from Man United's game against Bournemouth, is that if you give Mason Greenwood even, a couple of yards of space within the 18-yard box, his technique and the way that he strikes the ball is an absolute clinic, mate. He put 2 past Bournemouth, 2 absolutely sensational strikes. The power and the accuracy that he can get on shot means that you just can't allow him any kind of space in and around the area. And so no player has scored more goals from outside the box this season in the Premier League than Mason Greenwood, with 4.
That's an interesting stat.
It tells you all you need to know. And, we allow him to get onto the edge of the box. We give him, 10 yards of space. Mings is almost on the 6-yard box. He's beneath the penalty spot. He's that deep. No one gets out to the lad, and you give him that time and space, and he's going to put it past you. It was really poor. It's 3 consecutive games that Mason Greenwood has scored in now for Man United. I think there's only one teenager that's achieved that feat before. It was Wayne Rooney, who I think was a year and a half older than Mason is. So I do just want to shout him out. And if I'm taking my neutral hat as I did yesterday, what a player Man United had in Mason Greenwood, and the fact that he's English is just so exciting. But speaking from a Villa fan's perspective, we got what we deserve.
Absolutely, and as you say, that kind of goal is Mason Greenwood's bread and butter. He does that very often, so you would think it would. You'd look to stop the shot. I mean, surely the first thing you do is stop players from, 1, entering the box, and then 2, you're going to want the first line of defence. If you're stopping them from getting in the box, you've got to stop them from shooting. Mm-hmm. And I think I probably made about 10 tweets about Mings last night, but looking back on the goal as well, John McGinn, albeit he is clearly nowhere near match fitness still, absolutely has to track back and get on Mason Greenwood, because as soon as Ty loses the ball, Luiz, obviously he's on the recovery, but as soon as Greenwood initially releases that ball to Martial, I believe it was, mm-hmm. Who set Greenwood up, Luiz has to follow him because there's no one else there to cover, and the defence weren't stepping out. So McGinn, who's clearly walking back from the halfway line, has to then be on Mason Greenwood and neutralise that potential threat. He's not there. As soon as the ball then gets to Mason Greenwood, you've got to look at your defenders to step out there, because there was a good probably 15 yards distance between the two of them. Mm. So, you're inviting the shot on, you're inviting the pressure, and it was just really inexcusable, Dan. And from there, it became really hard to watch. And I mean, they scored 2 goals that were disallowed, didn't they? So, it could have even been 5 and they were offside. But the fact that they just so easily dispatched of us, which, let's be honest, we expected. We said it in the preview. United have been the best team since Project Restart. And it's quite frightening, actually, because you look at this United side and it reminds you of that, the Fergie era of when we were growing up, Dan, of how, dominant United really were. So, again, I don't want to come on the podcast and be like, yeah, this game's a free hit, because there's no such thing as a free hit in the relegation battle. There isn't. And it's not much of a battle anymore. It's relegation, really. We're 19th. We're 4 points off safety. We've got Crystal Palace on Sunday, and it's looking increasingly less likely that Villa are actually going to amass a points total which will keep them in the division.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, mate. I was incredibly disheartened to see Smith after the game say that Sunday we're going to have to see how the other results go, and that would depend on whether it's a must-win game. It's been a must-win game since about April. To be honest with you, mate, as soon as the lockdown was called on, that Crystal Palace game I singled out as probably the easiest or most winnable game that we had. So if it's not a must-win game at this point, then I don't know what else to call it, to be honest with you. But no, Man United were just incredible last night. The way that they played at about 60%. That they started preparing for their next game almost kind of 5 minutes into the second half. They had about 70% possession last night. We had, I think, 1 shot on target. Man United had countless. I think it was 6 shots on target, and as I said, they had 2 goals that were disallowed. But no, they were just incredible last night, and to watch. That's how I approached the second half, to be honest with you. I was just like, we have to, it's going to be Will Vaulks and George Saville dominating midfields next season at Villa Park, so I might as well enjoy it being Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba. Another goal and assist for Bruno last night, and what a player he is. I think that's the first time in Premier League history a team has won 4 games in a row by 3 goals or more. I think the last team to do it was one of the great Liverpool sides of the 80s. And what I did particularly enjoy about that United team was just the attacking diversity is just amazing, and we just couldn't handle that. But as I said, we knew this before the game, and look, mate, both you and I said that it was going to be hard, and we were, sort of hesitant to write it off as a free hit. But what it was a chance to show the fighting spirit that we showed against Liverpool, and a chance to show that whilst we were probably still going to lose this game, the fight was still there, and that we could still hold promise that that there's still a chance of a miracle because the players want it. There's only 2 players I can really credit. I thought Douglas overall was again our best player. I thought he was let down by his other midfielders. I thought Jack was all over the place last night. I don't think he quite knows his role in the side or where he's supposed to be playing, the position that he's taking up. I still find him out on the left wing almost 90% of the time. He's just trapped up against the touchline, and he's not in the positions where he can influence the game. And if anyone's going to give us the point, it's him. John, as you said, is not match fit. And the other lad I thought was all right was Neil Taylor. Whilst I don't think he was particularly exemplary, I can't think of too many instances where he put a foot wrong. And if he did, he was never making the errors that the other players in that back line made. But apart from that, I thought everyone was pretty poor. I thought Samatta offered absolutely nothing all game. I was quite disappointed because I'd been wanting to see him start. I thought he should have started against Liverpool. I was disappointed. I thought Trezeguet. It's so easy to say that that had that been different, it sort of changes the game, because I think either way we lose, mate. But
it's a half chance at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, we know he sort of runs through the middle of the pitch. He dispossesses Paul Pogba, I think it is actually. And Trezeguet did work hard. He dispossesses Pogba in the middle of the pitch, runs towards goal. He's got Samatta peeling off right, El Ghazi peeling off left. Samatta's the ball that he should play, but I understand him wanting to shoot because the opportunity does open up for him, but he doesn't hit the target. It hits the outside of the post, and the post is off target. The fact that he doesn't test David De Gea there is poor. And then a couple of minutes after that, we go and see that penalty given against Esri. And so, things could have been different either way, mate. I don't think that changes the game. I think we still lose. But the way that we just resided ourselves to defeat, and just accepted what was coming after we went 1-0 down, considering we're being told continually that there's belief in the dressing room that we can stay up, was really quite disappointing, mate.
Yeah, I think judging off Dean's interview, and I think I tweeted this halfway through the interview, but you could tell that Dean is a dead man walking at the moment, and clearly whatever is being said and done and allegedly actioned upon in the training pitch just isn't working. And we've spoke on the podcast before about Dean and the future, and as the games progress, I'm seeing less of an opportunity of Dean being the manager next season, or at least for an extended period of next season. That by no means means that I don't think he's the right man for the job. I just don't think that the owners will put up with this level of mediocrity anymore. And it's difficult to watch Dean Smith constantly in denial about what's going on. And there's so many Blues fans, Wolves fans, whoever, are always on getting their Dean Smith bingo cards out. What will his excuses be? And to be honest, they're not wrong in a sense. Like you watch his post match interviews, and it's, well, we played well, we were unlucky, VAR, this decision, that decision. And yeah, they're going to account for something. But at the end of the day, when the only real opportunity to score against Manchester United came in the form of Trezeguet hitting the outside of the post, you don't deserve to win, and you don't deserve to complain about refereeing decisions and VAR decisions that go against you, because you still didn't lay a glove on them. And even if that goal doesn't get given, let's imagine in some world that Manchester United didn't score the other two, and then the other two that were disallowed. Does a draw really keep us up here in this position? I don't think so. We need 3 points now, not 3 points by the end of the season. It's about getting the points now and making sure you can just put yourself in a good position, because we can't leave it late. And a point here and there isn't really going to be helpful, because we have to win games. So it's, hearing Dean say these things, it's just becoming quite tiresome. And Villa, I think, I'm wearing a shirt from when we were in the Championship. I've resided to the fact that we're going to be in the Championship next season. I think Smith coming out and saying, "Oh, we'll see if it's a must-win game," it's such a defeatist mentality, about Crystal Palace, a team who I believe hasn't won a single game since the restart. Mm-hmm. In fact, no, did they win at the weekend?
Well, no, I think they've lost 5 in a row now. They lost to Chelsea at Selhurst. Was that their last result?
That's the one. Yeah, 2-1, wasn't it? But this has got a Christian Benteke and Jordan Ayew goal written all over it, and every team who comes to Villa in bad form always picks up the 3 points, and they'll go on a win run, and that's just how it is with Aston Villa at the moment. It's really infuriating, and there's a lot of talk on the timeline of the rebuild, and yeah, it is going to be another rebuild job, isn't it? It's I think we're potentially looking at another 2 seasons in the Championship, at least. But we're still here, mate. We're still doing this podcast. As you say, I think we've just got to kind of enjoy it while we can. I mean, Douglas Luiz, what a player. And I saw in his interview the other day, he did with I believe Sky Sports, he was saying, I've got a 4-year contract, I want to keep Aston Villa here. And obviously the love for Douglas is sky high at the moment. But any Villa fan who thinks Douglas Luiz is going to stay with us in the Championship has absolutely got another thing coming when we've got a midfield that consists of Henry Lansbury, Conor Hourihane and Marvellous Nakamba. It's, words are empty. And if we go down, I'm just kind of looking at the squad and being like, well, do you know what? We've got a good defence for the Championship. If we lose Ty, I think we've still got a decent back four for a mid-table Championship side. And it's sad to even think them things. But what can you do, Dan? What can you do?
No, absolutely, mate. And look, I do believe that and this is, I was sort of thinking about it last night, and this is perhaps where I don't personally believe that Dean Smith is necessarily the right man for the championship, and I accept that the players are subpar but they are. But the one point that I will counter that is that Norwich are in a similar situation whereby they have a manager who wants to play a system. And when you watch Norwich, it's clear to see that, and that they've received a lot of criticism recently for still persisting to try that system and pass out from the back and play expansive football. This has been the problem with Norwich since they lost to Liverpool on the first day of the season. They played attractive football, but people went, no offense, if you're trying to play, expansive Cruyffian 4-3-3 attacking football with Kenny McLean and Grant Hanley, you're going to lose games in the Premier League. But that's the thing, is that Norwich don't have the players to survive in the Premier League, but you watch them and you can still see the system. So if they go down a tier to the Championship, again, they have a squad where the players are more attuned. They won't lose too many players. Ben Godfrey, Todd Cantwell will probably leave, but on the whole, that squad will remain, and you can see the philosophy that's then going to keep them challenging towards the top of the Championship. Same with Watford. Watford actually have a decent squad, but on the whole, probably subpar. But with Nigel Pearson, there's a philosophy, there's a way that they're going to play. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to come at you. They're going to make it very hard. And it's not going to be the prettiest football. But again, I'm going to use the word philosophy with Nigel Pearson loosely, but there's a game plan. There's a specific way you can imagine his teams playing. With Dean Smith, I still don't know. Again, like those two teams where you have a subpar squad with and I'd like to actually point out that our midfield is far from subpar from a relegation battle. I think, operating at full capacity, McGinn, Grealish and Douglas Luiz is a very decent Premier League midfield. And so whilst the attack and defence can be questioned, but let's not forget we still have an England international and Pepe Reina in goal. So, there's still some quality to be found in there. I still don't know what the system or the philosophy is. And that's why I struggle to believe that he's necessarily the man to take us up from the Championship. Because, again, I'm not too sure on that. And I don't know what the solution is, to be honest with you, Dan, at this point, mate, because we've tried so many different managers. We've tried so many different approaches. And so, I'm very lucky that I'm not Christian Perslow and the one that's calling the shots. But the fact of the matter is that Aston Villa will always be an attractive club to come and manage. There will always be people that want this job. There will always be people that do believe they're the one to turn this ship around. And it's not looking all too desperate yet. It's not like we're kind of doldrums in the Championship just yet. But, if we get relegated, I don't think we're going to have the financial problems that we did last time. Because we've got a lot of valuable assets that we can sell, and with the parachute payments and with just how wealthy our owners are, we won't have any of I shouldn't imagine the financial implications that we did last time, because we can rack up a comfortable 7,500 million just in player sales when we get relegated. And so, look, I don't necessarily think that it's time for doom and gloom just yet. Whilst I do believe that we'll be relegated, I think that there's a good chance that if we do get if we stick with Dean, or whatever happens, if the managerial situation is right, and whether it be Dean or someone else, whether we have the right person in charge, I think there's a good core squad and a good financial situation and a good club to get this side back into the Premier League. And I think that was partially the problem when we came up last time, is that we just weren't prepared to go up. And we were speaking about this on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, where it was never our intentions to go up. When Dean first came in, it was a sort of see us through to the end of the season, place respectably, and we'll go again next season. And so we just have to make sure that we go down with the squad that we have, with the manager that we have, that we are prepared and there is a vision to come up, and that those philosophies, like I was talking about with the other teams around us, can be implemented, and that they remain consistent regardless of who's on the pitch.
Yeah, that's the important thing. There has to be a level of consistency, and as you say, the assets are what's important. I think we all knew, really, if Villa didn't push on, we probably only had 1 year left with the spine of Ty, McGinn and Jack anyway. So it shouldn't come as much of a surprise that they'll go. I think it'll hurt losing Douglas because of how good he's been. But again, it's not a surprise. But there's an easy 100 mil there at least between them 4 players, and that kind of money, if managed effectively, can take you so far in the Championship. The one thing that frustrated me, and I mentioned it to my dad when I was watching the game, was Mason Greenwood. Obviously on the score sheet, fantastic player, young player. I understand why he is in the team because he was getting his chances in the Europa League, and the bigger clubs who are in more competition can afford to give their young players these games. What kind of frustrates me is the fact that we're seeing Indiana Vassilev come on in the 83rd minute to run around and do nothing for 7 minutes essentially. When as we've quite clearly stated, we're going to be in the Championship next season. Surely you're going to want Indy ready, firing on all cylinders. I'm not saying Indiana Vassilev is going to score 5 goals between now and the end of the season, but would it hurt to give him 45 minutes here and there, getting more adjusted to the physicality and what's needed? Because if we're going to lose all these players, you're going to have these talented youngsters that are constantly, we're constantly being told about and we're churning out. We've got to get them ready. I think Vassilev is probably, he's got to be in the team before someone like Louis Barry, purely because of age, if you're looking at it. So it's kind of infuriating that you see Indy get 7 minutes at the end to do nothing really.
Yeah, again, that's something that has been frustrating me about Dean. We didn't make substitutes until we were 3-0 down. What is the point then? And even then, as you said, if you're going to make substitutes, mate, I still don't know. Right, I've got to be quite frankly honest with you. I haven't watched too much under-23 football this season of the Villa. I usually go down and watch a bit more when it's at Villa Park, but obviously since they've been playing at Bodymoor, there's no public transport. It's a little bit hard to get to, and obviously they're not televised often, so I haven't got to watch too much under 23 football. Indiana Vassilev has made 7 substitute appearances this season. I still don't know what position he's best at playing. He's just sort of sent on aimlessly to give us a bit of energy and to sort of press, basically. And I think it's demoralising to poor Indiana, because these appearances in the Premier League, especially as an American, not someone who's grown up in this league, and we were speaking off air a couple of weeks ago, just how big the admiration is for the Premier League over there. These substitute appearances must be meaning the world to him, and the fact that he's sent on just to sort of charge around, not to show what he's best at doing. I don't really know the positions we're sending him on in. I don't know what Dean is whispering in his ear when we send him on. But no, it's just disappointing, mate. And I think the game management is what perhaps infuriates me most about Smith. As I said, the fact that it took us to go 3-0 down to make 3 substitutes. It's just so you might as well not bother at that stage, mate. Sending on Keenan Davis and stuff like that, and Connor, and it seems so futile at that stage. And yeah, look, I just last night is one to be written off, mate. And I think now you're absolutely right in saying we do need to start building for the future, and looking towards the players that are going to be around when we go down. Trezeguet goes off regardless. His agent has come out and been speaking very publicly about that for a long time. There are moves for him in Turkey to Galatasaray, Besiktas, and the like. If we do get relegated, so bench him. What's the point in playing him? It's looking like we are going to be relegated at this stage. So what's the point in continuing to be playing players that aren't going to be there to fight for us next season? Trezeguet doesn't want to play for us if we get relegated, or to be honest with you, it looks like he could well leave if we stay up, because I don't think he's up to the job. Then don't play him. Play Vassilev. Play the players like Jota, who I do admit is a flawed player, but has potential to play for us in the Championship. You might as well get accustomed and get them used to playing at Villa Park.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not like you're going to get any more money out of Trez if he scores one or assists one anyway, if he's got this move on. So just get rid of him. It doesn't make much sense really, and unless I'm assuming there's like a clause in the contract like there was with Louise in terms of a certain amount of games required for a visa or green card or whatever. But either way, he's not going to be there. So yeah, why persist? I think that's probably a good note to end the podcast on. Really, Dan, we've got another game coming up thick and fast. We kind of had a nice gap in between some fixtures, but we're coming to the end now. So yeah, I mean, we're here still without the intro this time. So to you guys in the comments, we hear you. We'll tell you what, we'll change the intro for next season. That is what we'll do. Intro song will change next season. You've got to put up with it, not today, but for the rest of the season. There's only a few more games. And yeah, we'll revamp the intro for when we're in the Championship, so it's a bit more fit for purpose. But we don't want to go with the standard Villa chants because there's like 55,000 Villa podcasts at this point, so it has to be something to stand out. Mm-hmm. I mean, the fact that you're even commenting about the intro music is still a good thing, even though it's it's a negative comment. You're listening. It's got your attention. You guys know what is happening when that beat drops. So yeah, we'll make sure that we can sort that out for you for next season. But we've got Crystal Palace on Sunday. 3 points in Villa are in a better position than they are now. It's unlikely, but it's not impossible. So yeah, that'll be it from us here at the Villa podcast. Just like to thank you guys for the support again, continuously. I believe the past few podcasts haven't had a single dislike. Now I've said that, someone's going to dislike it. But they've been doing really well in terms of views. The average watch time on YouTube is up. There's been getting plenty of players on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever your preferred network is. The podcast has been doing really well. So Dan and I truly appreciate that a lot. When Villa are playing poorly, it's nice that people still want to hear what we have to say. So yeah, hopefully we can continue to grow this, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I second that well and truly, mate. You guys have been really the really uplifting thing, and it's what's making me feel good about coming on and still talking to you about these negative results, mate, is that we've still got all you guys at home listening and watching and making all this worthwhile, because otherwise it's just you and I having a depressive talk on Zoom for 45 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah, that is it. And before we go, I'd just like to congratulate you again, Dan, for the first class degree in sports journalism. Absolutely amazing. If anybody is listening to the podcast, first class degree in sports journalism, Dan, hire him. He can host sites, he can run Twitter. Dan does everything. He's run a club's media department, so hire this man. He is the man for the job, whatever it takes. We've got to plug something in the podcast, Dan. We can't. So just amazing, Dan. I'm so happy for you. Really, I truly am.
I appreciate it.
So if anyone listening to the podcast enjoy, hit the like button, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe for more. We've been growing nicely on YouTube as well, so that is always nice to see. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, make sure you subscribe or follow to make sure that you're up to date with whenever we release a podcast. So thank you guys for listening, and up the Villa.